going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Leo's Nerd Talk, and today we're going to be going over Lilo and Stitch. So let's get into that. Hi, my name is Leo, and if you guys like talking about the movie, TV show, video game related, or just anything nerdy, you have come to the right place. And like I said, today we're talking about Lilo and Stitch. So without further ado, let's get into the review. But before we get into the movie itself, let's get back into one of my favorite segments that I haven't done in a very long time, and that is going to be my popcorn bucket review. And for this popcorn bucket review, we have the Stitch from AMC. Sorry, my green screen is kind of making them kind of translucent, but I think this is actually a very, very cute popcorn bucket. It has a very nice felt kind of suede feeling to it. So it's actually pretty high quality. It's for the most part pretty big, and it doubles down as an actual drink holder, and then you can open up the back, and then that's where the popcorn actually goes into. The only downside to this, it's kind of expensive, maybe not kind of, very, very expensive, but I had to get it for my fiance. She is a huge Lilo and Stitch fanatic. I can look over to our bed and there's probably 15, 20 stuffed animal Stitches. So I know this is something that was a must in her Stitch collection. And for me, someone that collects popcorn buckets, this was definitely a must buy as well. She was saying that there was a little bit of a miss opportunity to not make his mouth open up, and that's where the popcorn kind of goes into. I think the same thing too, but I feel like if you take this straw out, this is actually a very good display item because it looks very high quality. It doesn't look cheap, so you could definitely display this and kind of have it on the shelves. I think it actually looks very, very good. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the review. Now, Lilo and Stitch, of course, is a live action adaptation, or remake, I should say, of the original Lilo and Stitch, which I don't even remember what year that movie even came out. And this pretty much almost to a T takes a beat for beat storyline, but just in a live action aspect with, of course, CGI. So it's not full live action. It's like calling the Lion King live action remake live action. It's just all CGI. There is a lot of CGI within this movie. But overall, it is what you would expect. If you ever seen the original Lilo and Stitch movie, you know exactly what's going to happen in this one. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into my pros. And starting my pros, I just think that Stitch himself was done very, very well. There's a little bit more that they give the character, a little bit more dialogue and more mannerisms and things like that throughout the entire movie that I find very cute. And as we probably know, this movie was announced quite a bit ago, or at least rumored to be in the works. And the original Stitch that we got when it came to the first looks of what he was going to look like looked absolutely terrible. It was another one of those Sonic, mishaps where they just completely destroyed what the character actually looks like. And through memes and whatever the other forms of threatening the studio, whatever the case may be, they went ahead and changed the way the Stitch looked, and he looks so good in the movie. Even though there's times where you can tell you can see a little bit of that CGI in him. Overall, I think out of all the CGI characters that are in this movie, he absolutely looks the best. And without a doubt, that is what makes this movie, in my opinion. Seeing just Stitch do his things, be super adorable, super crazy, making a mess, having very fun, awesome moments, while also having a character that doesn't necessarily speak so much, but actually giving you a lot of great emotional moments. You do find yourself kind of tearing up towards the end when certain things start to go down, and it ends up being actually a somewhat emotional sequence and a very heartwarming sequence towards the end of it as well. And again, if you've seen the original Stitch, you know some of the heartwarming stuff that happens, but they add a little bit more flavor to it, and I actually really enjoyed that. This movie is about 20 minutes longer than the original animated film, so there's room to add just a little bit more, kind of background, or a little bit more dialogue, or stretch out certain sequences and things like that. So I think they did a very, very great job with Stitch himself. And then the story, while I'll get into a little bit more about it a little bit later, it is a beat for beat for the most part. And the original Stitch movie is a great movie. I love it. It's not something that I grew up on. It's something that I saw way later in life, but I still very much enjoyed that film. And that movie, I think, is very cute. It has a really cute, fun storyline, has some heart to it, has some decent characters in it. So if you like the first one, you're going to like this one. There might be certain things that may seem a little weird, but overall, it is a fun movie. It is a great family movie, and if you're a big fan of Stitch, this for me, this is already a must see. And I also did enjoy Lilo to a certain extent. Obviously, she is a child actress, but I think for being very very young, I think she did very well. She was also very adorable. She had very great mannerisms as well that led to very a lot of comedic relief to through a lot of the moments throughout the entire movie. You know, like the facial expressions she makes, the way she speaks, her kind of line delivery, it all ended up being very genuine and actually very fun. And I was worried because I mean, a lot of people were worried too that they didn't show Lilo as much throughout the trailers and the advertising and stuff. So it seemed like she wasn't going to be a big aspect of the movie. But I think she ended up doing very, very well. And for again, for being a child actress, I think she did quite well as well. And overall, this is just a fun movie. This is supposed to be one of those turn your brains off, enjoy the fun craziness of Stitch, enjoy the slight emotion aspects of it, of him being, you know, if you've seen the original movie, you know what happens. Him, you know, being taken away or being quote unquote too bad and stuff, and has to be taken away back by the Galactic Federation and things like that. So it ends up being a very fun, cute movie while also pulling a couple of the heartstrings. So overall, I think if you enjoy Stitch, like I said, it's a must watch. It's very fun. I think they did a great job, and it sets himself up for some more sequels, and maybe they'll remake some of the other movies that we've had in the Stitch universe in the past. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into my cons. And again, this is a movie where you can definitely turn your brain off and not think too deeply into it. But if I'm going to do that and think a little bit more deeper into it, here are a couple of my issues. Number one, I think the whole Pleakley and Jamba kind of subplot didn't feel as fun as it does in the animated movie. And in the animated movie, obviously, they don't go to the extent of making them into like actual human characters like they do in this movie. You rarely see the Pleakley and Jamba kind of alien form. You see them mostly as being disguised as humans, and I think the characters were fun at times, but overall, I don't think it was executed as great. And then same thing with Jamba, his the voice of Jamba just didn't fit the character. In the movie, he's a lot more, you know, dark and sinister, has a deeper voice, and has kind of like this very like weird, like kind of almost like Russian accent. And here it was very high pitch. It just didn't fit the menacing, like evil scientist that he is. So their characters, while at certain times were pretty fun, it did lead to be a little disappointing overall as like a subplot of them trying to capture Stitch. And then you have the reveal that we got a couple of weeks ago. I think they mentioned that that Gantu wasn't going to be a part of this at all. And if you don't know who Gantu is, if you haven't seen the original film, he's like basically the giant like shark. He's like the captain of like the galactic forces and stuff. So he's not in this movie at all. They told us that he wasn't going to be a part of it, wasn't going to show up. There was going to be no mention of him, which sucks because I think he ends up being a very fun character in the animated movie as well. So for them to not go that route, and I don't know what the reason was. I mean, you can't say that it wasn't because they couldn't figure out a way to animate him because they obviously animate all these other aliens, so it shouldn't be that big of an issue. So I'm not sure why they decided to completely cut out his character throughout the entire movie because I feel like he does have a pretty major plot within the original animated film. So it was a little disappointing to not see Gantu there. And then you also have most of my issues are character based. And then you have Bubbles. I think Bubbles was also very similar to Jamba, where they made him too bubbly. You know, the funny thing about Bubbles in the animated film is that his name is Bubbles, but he's supposed to be this big menacing tough dude. And in this movie, they made him just too like too nice, too bubbly, you know, without for lack of a better term, and it ends up kind of cutting that suspense of his character. And I mean, this is not spoilers or anything because if you've never seen the Stitch movie, that's like almost 25 years old. I mean, it's not my fault. But there's a twist with Bubbles at the end of the anime movie that he's been a CIA member this entire time. He's been in contact with aliens before. He knew about aliens. But the entire time in the original movie, he is played off as being like a social worker. And in this movie, they tell you right off the bat that he's a CIA agent, which I mean, I guess doesn't necessarily change anything, but I do wish they kind of kept it like the way the original one was, because I felt like it just works a lot better and has a better twist towards the end. So there's that with that character. And lastly, I would probably say like Nani. With me in the original movie, Nani is probably the one character that I never really enjoyed. I kind of found her felt that she was a little bit insufferable, and in this movie, she is to a certain extent, and but rightfully so. You know, she's going through a lot. She might lose her little sister. She might lose her home. She might lose a lot of things. So I understand her frustration. I understand her character and stuff, but it ends up being where she doesn't feel lovable. She doesn't feel like a character you can really relate to or care about, because she just feels like it just feels like she's all about herself, even though they try to make her seem like she's trying to help everyone else. So it ends up being a character that doesn't fully work for me. I think it does work a little bit better for me in this live action than the original animated film, but overall, still not a great character in my opinion. But with all that being said, what do we go to Lilo and Stitch for? For the most part, is the relationship between Stitch and Lilo, and I think it executed that portion of the movie very, very well. Would I rewatch it? I probably would, because I think Stitch ends up being very cute in this film. But if you're gonna be in a Stitch Lilo and Stitch mood, you might want to just watch the original animated film more often than not compared to this one. So was it enjoyable? I think so, but it did lean itself to a little bit of a disappointment. But that's gonna be it for this one, guys. Let me know what you guys thought about Lilo and Stitch in the comment section down below. This has been Leo's Nerd Talk, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you.